which we have decided to discuss with you today. And yesterday we have a discussion on the supply and demand concept and the curves we have discussed thoroughly. So now it, this is a very important topics which is under the fundamental of agricultural and economics. Myself, J.K. Sharma, your teacher for this course. So before going to in the detailed discussion, let us have a learning outcome of this topic. First, learning about the concept of production and creation of utility. This is the first, actually, the learning outcome, which is when we'll have we'll complete entire concept of this production and creation of utility. Then we'll have a complete complete understanding about these two things. Then the learning of production factors. What are the factors those who are affecting the production? They will discuss in this chapter, and then we'll have a understanding that what are those factors, what was their impact, and all these things we'll have a discussion and we'll learn after the completion of this chapter. Then discussion of law of returns. There are the economic laws. They those who are in apply. Will in this chapter we'll discuss regarding them, and then we'll know that how many types of the laws are there, and the assessment on their scale will also discuss over here. And then we'll have a multiple choice questions. We'll address those who are concerned with these topics. So now we are starting the discussion over the concept of production. As you know, the production, whatever we make, whatever an individual or a firm or organization make or prepare, and that we'll treat as an input, and whatever the ultimate the outcome is there, to whom we are calling the output. So production is a process of combining various material inputs and immaterial inputs. It means sometimes the physical inputs we are using, sometimes the raw material we are using, and we are converting this raw material through the various other inputs like labor, like machines, all these all are the other. And then whatever the outcome, the product, financial, farm, finally the finished product which is come out with with application of these inputs, then we'll have a we have prepared something or for the consumption of the consumers, to whom we are calling the output. Is the act of creating output a good service which has value and contribute to the utility of individuals? This is the basic concept of the production. Now let us have, actually, in what way we create the utility of the product, or of the final output, or the service which we are providing. So utility based on several factors. That the basic objective of production is creation of utility in commodities or generating ability in goods to satisfy human needs. This is the actually the, the creation process of production is considered over here. The utility of products can be created by following ways. There are five, actually, the procedure which we can have. Generally, we'll have, so through them we'll create or generate the utility of the product or any service. They are like that. Number one, the time utility. Utility of a commodity changes from time to time. For example, you know that the umbrella is very much useful in rainy season, but it is having the less utility when there is no rain. Similarly, we have several other things on the basis of the time factor. In that the raincoat is very much important in the rainy season. Similarly, the raincoat is not. There is no use of raincoat in the season while there is no rain. So this is the time, actually, when the product is being used or the service has been used, to whom we are calling the time utility. Then the form utility. Second one is form utility. Utility of a commodity changes with the changes in the shape. Sometimes when we change the shape of the product or the service, then the utility being called as a form utility. For example, the wooden, the trees, when they are having when they are habited in the nature, on that time they are just giving the environmental clearance. But when we cut the wood, and when we convert these woods into the good looking furniture, and into the other that utensils, wooden utensils, or sometimes the toys, or like that, then It means we have changed the form of that wood into the various commodities. So this type of that change in the form of a particular commodity is being called as a form utility. Then we have a third one to whom we are calling the place utility. It is added to commodity by transporting. It forms place where it is plenty of the place. You know that it's depend upon the place. Sometimes the product is being produced somewhere else and it is being utilized somewhere else. So it's a place where the product is being used, is creating a utility on that particular area, or on that particular group of peoples, that to whom we are calling the place utility. You can understood this thing very simply, that some things which we produce somewhere else and being utilized in the some other part of the world. So this type of that utility which we have in, which found in the, or which we create sometimes in the world, to whom we are calling the place utility. Then after these three, there are one of the most important thing whom we are, to whom we are categorizing under the possession utility. When the change is possession of a commodity increases utility, then it is known as possession utility. Utility of a matchbox, it is not that much of having utility at the manufacturing unit, but it is being utilized in the house, or by the smokers, or the people, those who are having the fireworks works. Sometimes they have the more utility of this no matchbox. So to whom we are calling that the commodity which is very much important if they are in the possession of the person who is using them. So this type of that utility of the product, to whom we are categorizing under the possession utility. Then the last one but not least, that advertisement utility. Sometimes due to the promotion, due to the audiovisual project promotions, due to the advertisement in various source which we are using for communicating the masses of a particular product or a particular concept or a particular service, that enhance the utility of that particular service or the product. So to whom we are categorizing under the category of the advertisement, because consumers will get more knowledge of the product, and hence definitely the utility boost up. So that there is an example of that crack cream in past. That when the advertisement came, then people started that this cream is very much useful to healing the cracks in the legs. So that is very important, that when we have created awareness via advertisement, then the people have started using this. And the so many, the cold drinks, sometimes the people, those who are famous, those who are having the impact in the society, they are promoting any of the product or concept or service that enhance the user of that service. So to whom we are calling that this is the way when we can have opportunity to enhance the utility of the product or service. So these are five important that utilities, those we have discussed: time, place, possession, and the advertisement, etc. These five important utilities, they are changing the utility of any product or a service. So now, first we have discussed regarding the production concept, and now we are discussing about the, now we have just completed the discussion how we can enhance the, how, what kind of the utility is there, and how we can have opportunity to categorize these utility of a particular service or a product. So now next we'll discuss that what are the factors those who are decided, or those who are we are treating them as a deciding factors, those who decide the economic term, and describe the input that are used in the production of goods or services in order to make an economic profit. The factors of production includes, that what are the factors? They are the land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. These are the four factors. They are generally being treated as a production factor. But nowadays we have added two factors: the management and the knowledge. These two factors, they are further being added in these four production factors, and because of their importance. So now we will have a discussion one by one, that land, represents the all natural resources. It means whatever the natural resources we are having, natural resources, it means water, land, environment, all that, and the area where we have all the facility of producing a particular product, or to develop a particular product or service, that they are being categorized under the category of the land, such as timber and gold used in the production of a good. It means you know that these these timber and land and gold, they are generally directly we are collecting from the land. Timber, we are cutting the trees from the jungles and the forest, and then the gold we are collecting through the mines. So these, both of these things, they are the example, decent example of the land factor which is responsible for the production. And even the agriculture also, you know, the entire agricultural product, the crops and the vegetables, fruits, they all are being grown up in the land. So this land is a very important thing which is responsible for for production, or for doing the activity, or for developing any product. Then we have a labor, and the second important factor which is very much important and have a ability to influence the production, that is labor. Includes all the work. The laborers and workers perform all levels of an organization except for the entrepreneur. Other than entrepreneur or work, all the factors, all the people, those who are being engaged in the developing of the product, or in the manufacturing of the product, they are being treated as a laborer. Then the fourth one, which is very important, that entrepreneur, it is individual who takes an idea, who had an idea to develop the product. Through that idea or concept, they develop the concept into a product, and that product finally satisfies the demand or the desire of the ultimate user, ultimate consumer. So this is the person who take the risk in entire process. So to whom we are calling the, and he is simultaneously he is responsible for benefit and loss, for which who is responsible for benefit and loss. That person as an entrepreneur. So these are the four factors. They are very much important. First one is land, then second one is labor, then then entrepreneur, and then the fourth one, which is very much important, that capital. Capital, you know, all the things, tools, machinery, and sometimes the financial, that the capacity of a person, they all are being treated as a capital. It is made up of all the tools and machinery used to produce a good or service. Whatever the machinery we are using, whatever the tools those we are using to develop a product, or to convert that idea into the product, or finally that to use, because the software company, they are using the computers and all, and they are developing a concept, and finally they are developing through these machines. So this concept, which is being used by the various organizations to manage their entire activities. So it means the software company, they are developing the software. This is the final product of these organizations, or these, you know, the IT companies. They have final product, whom we are calling the to we are calling the software which they develop for any organization to manage their day-to-day activity, day-to-day business activity. So these organizations, they develop the software through the through, you know, the computers, through the machine which they are using, that being considered under the category of the capital. So now these four things which we have discussed: land, labor, entrepreneur, and the capital. Now the input output relationship is very important. That what is relationship in between the input and output? Whatever the inputs, all the things those we are using to develop a concept into a product, or to use we are using all the resources to to develop a concept or service into the final product. So that all the things being considered under the category of the inputs, and whatever the inputs we are using, whatever the final outcome of those input, to whom we are calling the output. So these all the things, those whatever the things which is developed by the use of inputs, that whatever the things that ultimately, when the product developed, then whatever the source we are using to provide that product to final consumer of that particular product which we have developed by using the inputs, they all are being categorized under the category of the outputs. After production of that particular service or product. It means whatever the resources we use to finally provide the product or service at the final user or end user, those are being categorized under the category of the output. So what is the relationship in between them? Let us have a discussion over here. The functional relationship between physical inputs, factors of production, and physical output, the quantity of goods produced, it refers to a flow of inputs resulting in a flow of output over a period of time, leaving prices aside. Here we are not considering the price, because we'll keep this thing aside, because whenever we develop a product, whatever the inputs we are using, then whatever the outputs we are using, finally when the product developed, and ultimately whatever the way, whatever the people, whatever the resource we are using to provide that particular final outcome of that activity, to or the service to the end user of that particular activity. So what is the relationship in between these? Let us have a discussion on that. The input output is a purely technical relationship in physical quantities between the inputs of factors and output of the products. It has no reference to money price. That we have already told that this is not the thing which is being considered over here. So y is equal to, that the relationship is equal to the factors. It's a sum of factors. Those input factors and output factors are there, and that is there, which is being expressed over here through the formula. Now, after discussing these factors of productions, now we'll have a final discussion on the law of returns. In economics, we have a certain that that the parameters on the basis of that the entire economic activity is being handled, or is being governed. So these the law of returns operate the short periods and long periods. It explains the production behavior of the firm or organization with one factor variable while other factors are kept constant. It means one factor we will take into the consideration on the time. Will measure the impact of that particular factor on the entire activity, and we'll treat that other factors, they are being treated as a constant. So these are the laws, all we are calling the law of returns. What actually we are expecting with the activity which we have done to develop a product or a service. So these are being governed by the certain laws to whom we are calling the law of returns. There are the two types of law is there. The law of variable proportion and the law of returns to scale. There are two actually the way to decide these law. Number one, law of variable proportions concerned in short term production, because here the short term activity being analyzed. Then the law of returns on scale. Here the seeking to analyze the production in a long term period. It means the long term activity will have a matter of concern over here. The law of variable proportion, the first one will have it is known as the law of diminishing return. The law of variable proportion states if the input of one resource is increased by equal increment. It means that when the input of resource is increased by equal increment per unit of time, while the input of other resources are being held constant. It means the one of the factor or one of the input we increase, and other factors we keep them in a constant. The total output will increase, but beyond some, by doing this activity, when will increase only one input factor, and other input factors will remain constant. Then what will happen? The total output will increase, but beyond some point, the resulting output increases will become smaller and smaller, and finally it will go into the negative direction. So some same condition addition of extra input. It means marginal profit will diminish. It means it is showing in a decline manner, and finally it is diminished. So from the same addition of extra inputs, then this is being considered as a diminishing return. It means after some time, initially you will find that when you are increasing the a particular input factor, there is an increment in the output. But after that output will remain constant and gradually reduces that amount which we are applying in the form of the input. Is We are not getting the same similar we are getting the decline that effect even that in the sense of the output, and after that there is a negative impact. So this is because there is a after that after slightly increase in the output, there is a systematic decline we will observe. So that's why we are calling it the diminishing return. Law of variable proportions, that the second one, the category is law of where we are using the where we are considering the long term that impact, long term period also, to analyze the economic activity. Law of variable proportions has three stages of the return. Number one, increasing return, then the diminishing return, and the negative return. It means here we have a three category, because in the short term that we will have immediate impact, that after that we'll 1 month time or 2 month time or 1 day time, like that. But law of variable proportions has three stages. It means we will apply the increment in the input. Up to that extent we'll have a final that will reach up to the negative that return. So law of return now on the scale. First we have discussed the proportions based, then law of return on the scale. And when we'll express the law of return on the scales, that whatever input we'll use, whatever the impact on the output, if we'll express in on the scale, then we'll have a then to whom we are calling the law of return to scale. The law of return to scale operate in the long period that we have already told you. It explains the production behavior of the farm with all valuable factors. The law of return of scale describes the relationship between variable input and the output when all inputs or factors are increased in the same proportion. It means when it is very clear that once again you try to understand the law of return to scale describes the relationship between the variable input and outputs when all the inputs or factors are increased the same proportion. It means the things which we have in the same proportion, then the output we will have in the same proportion. So this law of return on scale, let us have a further that that the three types they are there: increasing return, then constant return, and then the diminishing return. It means up to a certain extent there is an increment, proportionate increment in the output when we'll increase the input, and after that the we will increase, but the things will remain constant. It means whatever amount will increase, in the same amount we have a increment in the output. When after that certain period, we'll find that even we are increasing the input, but there is no impact, or sometimes the negative impact on the output. So to whom we are calling the diminishing return. It means the benefit goes towards the downward trends, or shows it towards the decline trends. So let us have a first that increasing return on scale. If the output of a firm, if the output of a firm increases more than in the proportion to an equal percentage increase in all inputs, the production is said to be exhibit increasing return on scale. We further will have I'll show you in the in the in the graphical presentation also, that how it looks like. For example, that here we'll go that increasing return on the scale. Now you see here in the graphical presentation, there is a clear cut indication that that when we'll increase the 100 input, we'll have a 100 return. When we'll include in when we'll have a, you see that that there is a 100 to 300. It means when we have increased the input up to 100, we'll have a 300 times that things is there. It means in the cross line, which is clearly indicating that there is an increment written on the scale. It means the scale is exhibiting when a change in input is proportionally more than change in the input. It means when we'll have a 100, then we'll have a 300. It means when we increase the input up to 300 unit, we'll find up to 100 unit, we'll find the return in the 300 unit. So this is the scale where we can say that the things are very much useful, that we are applying 100 inputs of units, and we are getting the return of 300 units. So this is the trend to whom we are calling in economic increasing return of scale. Then the second one, constant return on the scale. When all inputs are increased by a certain percentage, it means whatever the inputs we are having, we are increasing them in a certain percentage. The output increases by the same percentage. It means when we will increase 10% in the input, we'll have a same 10% impact on the output. So it means here is the constant. If you want to increase the output, we'll have to apply the inputs resource in a similar manner. We'll have a output. So this situation on scale being treated as a constant return on scale. I'll show you this thing that over here in graph, that here we have a clear cut indication that there can be a situation where neither law of diminishing rate operates or nor law of increasing rate operates. It means there is nothing like that. It means if we are using 100 if unit, there is no 300 unit. It means there is no increasing returns on the scale, and also there is no decreasing scale exhibition, because when we are using 100, there is no increment like 80 or 50 or like that on the output. It means whatever if we are using 100 unit of inputs, the same 100 unit of output will find in the scale. So this is the law of constant. It means here the input and output both are constant. In the same amount we'll find the output, the amount which we have applied or increases in the input. Then the third one, diminishing return to scale. This is also a very important situation, that you will find that you are applying or increasing in inputs 100, and if you are not getting the output 100, you are getting the output 80. It means increment 80. It means you are applying 100 rupees or 100 unit and you are getting return 80. If you are applying 150, you are getting 70 or like that. It means there is a decrement, there is a continuous decrement in the output. So this is being treated as a diminishing return of scale. The term diminishing return to scale refers to the scale where output increases in a smaller proportion than the increase in the all inputs. For example, if a firm inputs by 100%, but the output increases by less than 100%, or for example 80%. After that 70%. After that 50%. So like that, this exhibit decreasing return to the scale, to whom we are categorizing under the in the economic terms diminishing return to scale. So on now, this is the situation that here we have all three things. The first one is the increasing returns on scale. Then the second category we have to whom we can say that it is constant. And then the third one, negative in return. It means when we are applying 100 units, we are getting 80 units. We are applying 150, we are getting 50 units increment. Or it means it is the amount which we expecting, which is not there, and comparatively it's a decreased amount which we will receive after enhancing in the resource input or in the input of which we are using to develop the product. So these are the three laws. They are very important, and you know all the economics depend on these things, and all the economic activity which was governed by the business organization, they are being judged by the market research sections, that what is actually the product is doing in the market, what is actually the service is doing in the market, and in what way we have to, what are the things we can further apply to have increasing that the first one law every time if it is possible. But sometimes it is not possible. Even sometimes if the company running 5 to 10 products, 5 products they are sometimes in the increasing trend, 2-3 products they are in a constant situation, and then there are few products, even if you do anything, but you cannot have further that increment in the same pattern which we are expecting. So these three laws, they are very important. And the law of diminishing, here the explanation is that the law of diminishing return, also called the law of increasing cost. It means that we will not simultaneously, if you are using 100 rupees in input and you are getting 80 rupees in return, so this is a clear cut that indicator that you are increasing the cost, not the output. For increasing that 100 output, you are using for increasing 80 unit in the output, you are using 100 unit. So it means it's a clear cut the indication of we are increasing the cost. Then this is the third law is indicating that if the organization is not assessing all the things properly, then they are generating the losses continuously. So these that's why they have to understood that what kind of laws they are there and in what way they are using. Richard A. Biles described the law of diminishing return in the following words: if the input of one resource to other resources are held constant, total product output will increase, but beyond some point, the resulting output increases will become smaller. That I have told you, and at last it shows the negative trend. So these the same things expressed by the Richard and Vilas. Now we'll have a few questions, those who are very important, and they are solely based on this particular discussion. That I'll read and I'll give you the answer also, because we have in the red I have marked the answers of these MCQs. They are very important. They are also helping you to understand and the application part of these particular laws. If a resource use, the first question is, if a resource use in production of a product are increased by 20% and output increases by 20%, then there must be what we say. It means that both things are same. So the second law, constant return of scale, we can say, because this is the correct thing. It means we are applying 20 in input and same we are getting 20 in output. So this constant return on scale, which is the correct answer. The larger diameter of a natural gas pipeline, the lower is the average total cost of transmitting 1,000 cubic feet of gas to 1,000 miles. Thus is the example of economies on the scale. This is the example of economies into the scale. It means that we will increase the diameter of that thing. Similarly, we have the increment in the gas which we have transferred from one place to another place. So it is we can have it's application of economics of the scale. When a firm double the input and find its output has more than doubled, now you see that when the firm doubled its input and find that its output has more than doubled. So this is the economies of scales. It means we are in an increasing trend. Then the fourth one, variable cost are variable cost. It means the cost that change the level of production. It means the variable cost. What whom we are calling the variable cost? The cost change with the level of production. It means the input ingredient, variable cost came under the input that the resource which we are using to enhance the product or to develop the product or to enhance the productivity of the product or service. So cost that change the level of production is the correct answer. Then the fifth one, when the total product curve is falling, it means the total product curve is falling, then the marginal product of labor is zero. Marginal product of labor is negative. It means when the decreasing trend is there, it is clear cut that marginal product of labor is negative. It means whatever the input we are using, it is having the negative impact. The law of diminishing return only applies in the cases where there is at least one fixed factor of production. Only in that case, at least we fix the one production factor fixed. Otherwise, we can't assess the things properly. So these are the few MCQs. They are also the brownies. I hope they are very much useful for you people. And you please go through them and try to apply them in day-to-day life, and you practice these laws. They are very much useful. Even we will have a little bit understanding of these things. We can plan our business of any service or any product which we want to develop in future course of action as an entrepreneur. So this is the final call from my side. Now once again I'll revise that what we have learned in these things, that now you will have the objective, the learning outcome of initially we'll have a discussion on that that concept of production we have discussed, and how we create the utility of how we understand the utility of the production factor. Then the learning production factors, we will have discussed that what are the factors: land, labor, these all the things, capital, and then entrepreneur, and the management and knowledge. These are the few factors. They are very much important, and they influence the production of any product or any service which we have planned to develop as an entrepreneur. Then the discussion of laws. We have discussed the laws that will give us the better understanding, that law of increasing return, then law of constant, and then law of decreasing return. So all these three important law we have discussed thoroughly, and I hope that you will have a better understanding of this particular concept which I have discussed today. And if you have further any query, you please ask me either.
So, good evening, student. Today, I have decided to discuss a very vital topic regarding the same I have discussed in the previous class. That the topic is on balance sheet, and this is the very important tool uh, of financial transaction to assess the health, financial health of any business, financial health of any business. So, balance sheet, it is a statement of financial position of a firm at a particular time, showing its assets and liabilities and equity. It means these things, the statement on a particular day or particular time, it expresses the assets, liability, and equity status of any firm or any individual or any organization to whom we are calling the balance sheet. And this balance sheet is also we are giving the name of that ITR, that ITR is being filed on the basis of the balance sheet. So that is very important thing, important statement of any firm. Through this, we can have that idea that the firm, what kind of that the financial situation of that organization or that company is that. So on the basis of that balance sheet, we can have this idea, and the financial institution, those who are issuing the credit to any organization or any firm or even the state or central government, if they are producing their balance sheet of any public sector company or public sector organizations, that on the basis of that the financial that situation of the organization, that can easily be understood that what kind of that strength this organization is having. Through balance sheet, we can have idea that what kind of that financial that strength of that particular firm or organization is at present. And we can if we go through the 4 5 years balance sheet, then we can have that idea that in what way they are working as far as the finance is concerned. So if in what way they are utilizing their financial resources, that can understand, that can easily be understood, and it will become a self-explanatory when we'll go through these kind of the document whom we are calling the balance sheet. So if liabilities are less in from balance sheet, what we see, if liabilities are less, then assets it called net worth. It means the if in the balance sheet, if organization, if we go through that, if the assets are more as compared to liabilities, it means the earnings and the capital, all these things, they are having much more that position as compared to the overdrafting or the pendency of the organization or the what kind of that things they have to pay, what kind of money they have to pay, that all the things is also being called as a liability. So if assets are more, then the balance sheet being called as a net worth or equity. And if liabilities are more as compared to assets, if that kind of situation is there in balance sheet, then we have to critically analyze this thing, and we are calling this situation as a net deficit as a net deficit. So that let us have further elaboration of assets. Those are owned by the owner, by the firm, by the institution. About the balance sheet we are talking. It means whatever the those are owned, they have the ownership of all the things to whom we are calling the assets. And liabilities, things owed to others by farmers. It means, for example, if the bank loan, it means the product of bank is finance, that the amount of the money which they are giving to the farmer, it means the bank is owning of that thing, but farmer is taking that commodity to whom we are calling the credit or the financial assistance which we are taking from the bank. That is a product of the that the ownership of that particular product is of bank in case of that the money if they are providing to the farm. So that it means the ownership of that thing which farmer or which any firm or any organization is incorporating in our business, that is liability. That is liability. So and accordingly the situationally we are calling these assets and liability current, intermediate, long term assets, current, intermediate, long term liability. So these are the three categories under which we got the information from the balance sheet, that how much current assets are there, how much the medium or intermediate assets, how much the long term assets they are having with them, and how much the current liability, intermediate liability, or the long term liability. So all these things they are self explanatory in the balance sheet. Now I'll see that I'll give you one example of that balance sheet. You see that here the clear cut that everything is clearly explained, that current assets and current liabilities both are clearly mentioned over here. This is the balance sheet of farm on a particular day. The rupees I have also mentioned for better understanding, that the cash in bank, here the cash in bank 20,000 rupees. Okay, but the account payable to loan deposit, we are talking about the current assets and current liabilities. Okay, it's 15,000 rupees. Then petty cash 5,000 rupees. So these are the 25,000 rupees. They are the current assets immediately they are having in their hand, and to whom we are calling the net cash. Then the wages, all then the office rent and the maintenance cost and then the annual installment, all these to all together they are 77,000 rupees in the section of the liabilities. And here in the section of the assets, net cash we know 25,000 rupees is that firm is having with them. Then the value of crop which farmer they are having in their for the sale 80,000 rupees. Livestock product, that milk and all, they are getting 20,000 rupees. And agro poultry product ready for sales. That is, then the value of that bond or SIP, sometimes that the securities if the farmer is following this thing, 5,000 rupees. So total that assets at present, whom we are calling the current assets, they are 1,40,000 rupees, and the liabilities, current liabilities is 77,000 rupees. It means that this is the net worth position. It means this balance sheet is indicating about the current assets and current liability net worth, that position. Then we will go to the intermediate assets and intermediate liabilities. Intermediate assets, first one that we go dairy cattle, bullocks, poultry birds, machineries, all these they are the intermediate, because they are having, but farmer is not selling this thing, but they are the assets for the farmers. So that, for example, the dairy cattle 20,000, bullocks 8,000, poultry 10,000, machinery and equipment 3,000, like that. So subtotal is, if you'll see that the subtotal is about 3,48,000. That is the total of current assets and intermediate assets. Now we'll go into the section of the liabilities. Here the intermediate liabilities, LPM loan, if he has taken loan for the animals, that is 50,000 rupees. Machinery equipment loan 8,000 rupees. Unsecured loan if he had taken 4,000 rupees. It means here the 37,000 rupees is the intermediate liabilities. It means that thing he was supposed to pay, but not immediately, after 2-3 months, after a year, like that. Then finally we have a long-term assets and long-term liabilities. So that long-term, it means land, book value, buildings, all these, they are the long-term assets to whom we are calling the long-term assets. For example, 20 lakh rupees and 15 lakh rupees, that building's cost is there. So now it's a 35 lakh rupees, that kind of that asset the farmer is owning, with to whom we are discussing over here. And in the liability section, you'll see that the insurance and fixed assets loan payable. If he has taken loan on the farm building, or on the land, then they are the long term liability. So if it is 2,10,000 rupees, suppose he was supposed to pay the interest and the loan on these kind of things. So they are the long term liabilities. So now, if you see in this example of this balance sheet, that 39 lakh 48,000 rupees the assets, and here the 33 lakh 34,000 rupees liability. So this is the balance sheet which indicating the good health of a business, good health of a farm business, and it's a worthy balance sheet. It's a worthy balance sheet. And if the situation is reversed, if liabilities are more and the assets are less, then it's a net deficit. Then this balance sheet is not that much of worthy. It's a deficit, net deficit balance sheet. That we have to understood. Now the connecting thing, which is whom we are calling the profit and loss or income statement, that every individual is required to submit that income and loss statement, to whom we are also calling the income tax return. Through income tax return, we are submitting the ITR through the profit and loss statement. A profit and loss statement is financial statement that summarize the revenue, cost and expenses incurred during a specific period of time, usually a physical quarter or a year. Generally, we prepare quarterly, monthly, sometimes in some business house, but finally we'll issue for the 1 year. Revenue is the money you receive in the payment for your products or service. Operating or variable expenses are expenses that rise or fall based on your sales and volume. So these are sometimes the variable that expenses we are, and revenue we are, the revenue which we are earning through the sales of the product or service. Then the gross profit margin or operating margin is the amount left when you have subtract operating expenses from the revenue. When we'll subtract the operating or variable expenses from the revenue, then we'll see that this thing will be called as a at the profit or loss on the basis of the situation. So overhead or fixed expenses are costs that do not vary much month to month and don't rise or fall with the number of sales you make. Example might include salaries of office staff, rent or insurance. These are the overhead, that fixed expenses. Monthly we can calculate them, and then we can add them in the profit and loss statement. Operating income is the income deducting operating and overhead expenses will do. Then we have the operating income. Other income or expenses non-operating generally don't relate the operating side of the business, rather to how the management finances the business. Other income might include interest or dividend from company investment. For example, other expenses might include interest paid on loan. Pre-tax income is the income before federal and state government take their share. Income taxes. How income taxes is shown on public in profit and loss statement, but corporation, partnerships, LLCs, and sole proprietorship rarely show income tax expense on profit and loss statement. They are not showing this thing in the profit and loss statement. Net income after taxes is the final that amount or most profit and loss statement if we represent the net total profit earned by the business during the year, that financial year, above and beyond all related costs and expenditures. So these all are the few terms, those who are interconnected with the balance sheet. That's why I have discussed this thing in detail, and I hope now you have a better discuss, and other you can ask through the questions, through the SMS and through the through the message box. You ask some question if you have any query, and